they figure out how to make it work that's authentic for them and their audience, then you just let them be.
You're listening to Build Up, the Homebuilder podcast, brought to you by ZGM.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm Santana.
I'm a home building marketer, brand strategist, and your host of the Build Up podcast.
And I'm a digital marketer and the executive producer of Build Up.
And together, we love applying our expertise to the home building industry. Join us as we uncover industry insights, chat with colleagues, and explore exciting ways to push the home building world forward.
Hey, Jordan. Today on the podcast, we have something a little different. So as our listeners may or may not know, we are from an advertising agency background. So today we have brought on two special guests. One is Logan Widdicombe. She is our content team lead and our thought leader here for all things influencer marketing. And then we've actually brought in one of our awesome clients, Stuart Wen. He is the senior marketing coordinator for Rohit Communities. And the two of them do a lot of influencer marketing together. And I know that's a real hot topic right now. So we're excited to welcome them onto the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, Stuart and Logan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Spent a lot of time actually probably in the last 12 months working with influencers. So we thought it would be great to get the two of you coming in with different perspectives and ideas on working with influencers and hoping to educate some people on how to work with influencers and how to do it the right way.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Before we start, I'm going to ask a first kind of question. And I want maybe just a really quick, either one word or one sentence thought from each of you. Just your thoughts on influencer marketing. Logan, you go.
Influencer marketing is going to be very important for brands in 2023.
Okay, good answer. Stuart, your one word or sort of one sentence thought on just influencer marketing in general.
I would say very important.
All right, good answer. Okay. All right, we're going to start talking a little bit. We're going to start by talking strictly kind of about influencers and the approach to influencer marketing. And then we're going to kind of get into more working with influencers and what that feels like, how it operates, and some lessons learned there. So Logan, talk to us a little bit first about just sort of what is influencer marketing and why is it so important right now?
So influencer marketing is when brands partner with a large online creator who has quite a big following that's able to influence buyer decisions. Right now, we are seeing a bit of a shift from the large scale influencer celebrity type to more of a smaller influencer or a micro level influencer who would be between 5,000 to 30,000 followers and very highly engaged audiences and have a really great opportunity to change buyer perceptions or help to influence a potential purchase.
Logan, you and I, because we work on the same team, we often work pretty closely with media, and you're a real master at deciding when an influencer is maybe more appropriate or a good addition to some traditional media tactics. So when would you suggest somebody bring in an influencer and why?
Yeah, so when you're bringing in a new influencer, looking at influencer marketing, you really want to make sure that you are considering how your audience engages on social media and really looking at your total target audience and really finding niches that you can help to target. So if it's a product or a service, find that target audience and that specific niche that uses that product or service and find influencers that relate to that, whether they use it in their day-to-day life or something that feels like it's more authentic in their content. And when you're looking for these influencers, you want to make sure that you're looking at their audience and making sure that it aligns with your audience to really blend the two. And you want it to feel authentic in their feed. You want it to not feel like it's too pushed or too salesy. It needs to be authentic to them, and it needs to be authentic to your brand. So finding that healthy balance between the two is going to be really important.
So Logan, I like what you said about the authenticity of, what the influencer is talking about and your brand. So, it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense if the influencer was, typically talking about makeup and then tried to talk about tires. Like that wouldn't really fit anyone's audience. But so how do you find the influencers that fit? Like, how do you find the ones that are going to have that authentic feel and be able to speak really genuinely to the brand's message?
So one way we do that is by looking at specific keywords that through like keyword research or really looking at your followers and your audience. If they are looking at tires, for instance, maybe they're performance racers or performance tires. So look at that keyword, look at your followers, understand who these individuals are, look at your audience segments and your brand's followers on your social channels, and then translate that to potential users and who you're looking for. And who your ideal end consumer would be. And then from there, we utilize tools to kind of plug it in. And that just gives us an opportunity to really understand further their specific influencers in this niche. So that performance tire niche. And from there, you can break it down even further based on age demographics, where they're located, and using third-party tools in this sense will really help to just understand and expedite your research overall. Some really good ones are #paid, Clear, which is a Canadian brand. There's a bunch of them out there. Grin is probably one of the top ones right now. They really just help you expedite your research a little bit further. You can look at brand hashtags that they use, brands that they've worked with in the past. If there's anything within your industry that you want to stay away from, you can generally filter that out. Or if there's something within your industry that you want to filter in because it's a really great overlap in your content and in your influencers, definitely utilize those filters. And then once you're kind of hitting the end of your research phase, it's always good to collect the influencers and see if there's any general overlap between followers and content that they create and brands that they work with, just to see if there's a more cohesive story that you can tell.
Stuart, you've worked with a lot of influencers over the last 12 months. What's been your experience so far working with influencers?
I would have to say it's been a very good experience. Thanks to a lot of good research in behind and recommending who to work with for us as a home building brand, I found it rather rewarding. The influencers usually would ask you, well, is there something specific you want me to talk about? And as long as you keep it within their niche or genre, it generally comes across as very authentic. But all that research that Logan was talking about, that's that groundwork that's got to be laid in advance. Otherwise, you could end up with a bit of a mess, which has been my past experience as well.
What's some of the biggest lessons that you've learned working with influencers recently?
Well, I think I touched on it earlier, was making sure that the influencer stays authentic and within their own niche and their own genre. If they don't, then, as Logan said, it comes across as too salesy. And you don't want that, because what will happen is it's not good for your brand, it's not good for their brand, and you don't get the results you were looking for. Because as the client in the end, if your results aren't what you want because it was too salesy, then you just didn't do it right in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Logan, what would you say are some of the most important things when you're getting set up with the influencer and sort of almost like metaphorically passing them the mic?
Definitely have a mood board and proper key messaging ready to go for them, as well as outline what your approval process is. If you need to approve the content before it's published, make sure the influencer knows that, and make sure that you have a proper process set up when reviewing the content and outline exactly what you're going to be looking for within each piece of content.
Stuart, as the client and as the approver of the content, what's been your experience with that? Like, sort of, how are you working with the influencer to approve that content to make sure it's what you're looking for and on brand for you?
What I'm looking for is something that speaks to my subject matter, whatever it was, whether I'm trying to sell a home, sell an experience, sell a lifestyle, what have you. And it needs to match that by tone, by energy levels, by everything. And if it is set out clearly at the beginning, then it makes it a much smoother experience because the influencer themselves already knows what you are looking for as the client, and then will more likely deliver the first time around and with very minor edits. Because the last thing you want to do is have them reshoot something, because that's hours worth or even a full day's worth, and it's a whole lot of wasted time for everybody. So the clearer you are up front, what I was mentioning earlier is, speaking with them in advance. Yes, you as the agency may have set things up, given them the clear messaging. If you meet, you as a client, meet the influencer there at wherever your shoot may be, you reinforce what you're looking for, so it's top of mind, then your results are going to be that much better, because I've experienced it both ways. Not being there and then having to reshoot, and then being there and having it almost perfect right out the first time.
Yeah, so that's great. And I think that's a great lesson for a lot of people who are looking to get into influencer marketing and starting to use influencers. Talk to me a little bit more about being there and how that improved the whole experience for probably the influencer, but especially yourself.
Well, I found that if you're there, then you get to build that little bit of rapport. Even that 5-minute meet and greet, they get to have a bit more of an understanding about you as the client. You now understand them a little bit more because you've never met them, right? These are essentially strangers. And so if you have that chance to break the ice, your results are going to be that much better because you could have toured them through, you could have pointed out a few things. It is consistent with your key messaging. They figure out how to make it work that's authentic for them and their audience. Then you just let them be. You don't hover around in the background like it's a TV commercial and you've got the client behind the camera, watching what the director sees. In this case, you meet them, you let them do their thing, and that's essentially it until it's time to review. But your chances of your product being very, very good is quite high.
That's such an important lesson. And I think the other thing that you touched on there, Stuart, is also really important. So in terms of, this is very different than a photo shoot or a video shoot, because you are you're giving the influencer your key messages, what you want them to hit on, how you want that to be delivered. But at the end of the day, you're letting them do that their way. And you're sort of giving up a little bit of that control. How has that sort of been in your experience, sort of giving up that control and letting them just roll with their own way of expressing your messages?
It's very nerve-wracking because if you are trying to express your brand in a particular way, you want certain words to come out. But in the case of an influencer, it may not be authentic. And that's going to be an inherent challenge. But on the other hand, if you ask too much, then that's when you get that salesy result. And unless that was your original intent, you're destined for failure.
I think that's a really important lesson. Logan, Stuart talked about getting things set up from the front. And having things in a really good place so that the influencer understands what the expectation is and what they're doing. What are the steps that we sort of take in order to make sure that influencer, has all the messages, knows what's going on, and how that influencer knows what they're going to be doing, what the expectations are?
Yes, so it's always really great to have a brief a campaign brief, just something that they can have that's very direct, high level, has all of your key points, and basically encompasses your overall goal and expectations. It's also really great, as Stu said, to get in front of the influencer and have a face-to-face or on the phone conversation just to establish a bit more of a relationship with them, but also to make sure that if there's any questions, they feel like they can ask it right away, and just to really understand the brand tone a little bit more. Sometimes when you're messaging people back and forth, whether it's over email or text or something like that, tone seems to be missed. So it's always great to just have those conversations with them and really explain the brand tone, what you're looking for, and what your end goal is for the content that they're creating. And then also what we tend to do is create a mood board for them so that they know what we're looking for, or very similar posts that we want to recreate, using whether it's some sort of element or the product in it or the way someone talks about a service. Just using those and talking through what you liked and what you didn't about those posts will also kind of help guide them along the process.
That's really smart and actually very interesting. I also wanted to ask you, Logan, so when you're dealing with influencers and you're dealing with the content they've created, what are some of the do's and don'ts with the content that they've created? Because technically at the end of the day, they own that content, right?
Correct. Unless you buy different levels of their content rights. So there's different levels that you can purchase. There's white labeling rights, which gives you permission to advertise using that content and putting your brand on it for an X amount of time. So that should be included in the negotiation process, as well as if there's any content usage rights that you want for your social channels. So if you want to reshare that to your social media channels or get access to that content to own in marketing, online ads, maybe an email newsletter, anything like that, any type of repurposing the content, you need to negotiate that into your overall budget with that influencer. So make sure you're including that in your overall campaign budgets as well. And this can range from a overall lifetime usage fee to a month by month. And I've even seen day by day, where they charge you every single day that it's on your social media channels or every day that it's running in ads. So it does fluctuate. You just really have to be clear exactly what you're purchasing from these influencers.
Stuart, having done a few influencer campaigns over the last year now, what has been the response? Like, what have you seen as the response from those influencer campaigns?
The response has been very, very good. We've not tried to use the campaigns for direct sales purposes. They're more for raising brand awareness. They've been very good for doing that because the types of influencers that we have selected were more lifestyle oriented. So what we wanted out of it was for people to understand that for Rohit, we want to be known as the designer home builder, and then have the right type of influencer, those that are lifestyle oriented, also be able to express in their own way, look at these great designs, not just from interior design and the fit and finish on the furnishings, but also the design of the homes. That is all that we tried to achieve. And so by getting the right types of influencers in there, we've got literally, I would say, thousands of likes out of it over the length of the campaign.
Wow, so that's like thousands of new likes that you've had to kind of the Rohit channels over the course of the campaign.
Yes, that's correct.
That's great.
I wish it was in the millions, but thousands will do.
We'll get there. Logan, what are some of the other important ways of sort of measuring the effectiveness of your influencer campaign?
It really depends on what your overall objective is. Like you can have purchases, link clicks, you could drive newsletter signups, but usually it's engagement on a social channel. If you're looking to grow it, or if you're looking to really just get in front of your audience at more of that top of the funnel approach, it is generally engagement.
Logan, it almost strikes me like a Like it needs to be like everything that you and Stuart are telling us. It really sounds like it almost needs to be as much of a brand partnership and collaboration as it is like a paid contract, right? It's not like an advertisement. It's like when this is a weird niche reference, but I don't know if you've ever seen the Gucci Adidas collab. They're two brands that are kind of unexpected, but somehow they come together beautifully. It benefit both of the brands, and it's just this really cool result that comes out of it. And it feels like that, from my perspective, it looks like that's the difference between influencer and media, right? Like, how are you complementing each other's brands, and like, how do you create that natural symbiosis?
Yeah, it's going to be very important, especially going into further into 2023, to have more of a brand partnership with your influencers. These should be long-term partnerships, and it should feel authentic throughout the entirety of the partnership. One brand that does it really, really well right now is Gymshark with Whitney Simmons. They created a line of products with her and did a really great job at kind of utilizing her to sell their products for a few years. It wasn't just like one blip and that's it. They saw a huge uptake in sales, as well as a lot of social engagements and excitement from their already engaged audience, but they also tapped into her audience a little bit more. And they are just ending their partnership with her right now to move on to another creator. But just something really interesting to see how brands are starting to use them for years on end to create content for them.
Stuart, is that a really fair way of looking at it, working with influencers, is sort of calling it a brand partnership? Does it feel that way to you?
Yes, actually, that's a wonderful description for it. You're each leveraging your own brand and you're amplifying each other's voice. And through that work, that collaboration, you're finding the synergies. And that's a direction that we want to take continuing into 2023. And, there's so much potential behind it.
I have to ask this rapid fire questioner. It's gonna haunt me if I don't ask this to both of you. So I'm hoping you two can trade back and forth until we get them all out of the way. We've all, as marketers, gone to someone's dinner party, or we've gone to some family gathering and just hear the most ridiculous things that people think about what we do. So I would love to hear from you two. What are some of the common myths about influencer marketing? Like, what are the things that you hear where you're like, absolutely not?
Well, it's all about the really dangerous things like Tide Pod challenges.
Oh, absolutely. That one is by far the one that comes up the most, or dancing on TikTok. People think that influencers just dance on TikTok. That's all they do. Those are brand partnerships. That's it.
Social media is nothing but cats. It's all cat videos.
You know what? For certain people, I bet it is nothing but cat videos. But for Santana's pointing to herself. For the majority of us, it's not just cats.
Logan, the other one too that I want to maybe prompt you into a rant on is just go viral. Just go viral. It's easy, right, Logan? Is there like a step-by-step guide to going viral? Can you enlighten us?
Honestly, if I hear that one more time, I will be quitting my job and opening a doggy daycare. End of discussion. I'm not joking. You cannot force virality. It's something that, especially with the new algorithms on TikTok and Instagram, it's something that naturally happens. You don't know when it's going to happen. It's not planned. If there's a funny event that took place in your content, maybe that will go viral or maybe it will flop. It's just something that happens and we're not entirely sure why or how. But usually utilizing some of the tools that you have, like understanding when your audience is online, understanding how to optimize your content for the platforms, will help you get a little bit of additional reach and maybe go viral at one point. But it's definitely not a goal you should have.
Is it true to Logan that you could put a piece of content out there and it not really do anything and it kind of looks like it flops, But then, somewhere down the road, all of a sudden it comes out of nowhere, it resurfaces, and then just starts to go like wildfire.
Oh, absolutely. I personally had that happen. I was renovating something in my house over the pandemic, and it's now going viral on TikTok. It was posted 3 years ago. There's no hashtags on it. There's no special sound. It now has 400,000 views in the last 3 days, and I don't know what happened. So these things happen. All of a sudden your content will just take off, and you honestly won't know why. I have a tweet that I've kind of saved over the last few years, and it's from a social media marketer, and they said that you're a true social media marketer when you look at your boss dead in the eye and say, "I don't know why that happened. Facebook is just being weird today." And I feel like that is like a social media marketer's life. And that is like the perfect description of what we do, because you honestly, it's just kind of like a guessing game sometimes. You just don't know. Sometimes the numbers make sense. Other times you have to draw conclusions from other things. It's a wild, wild world in social media land.
Yeah, it truly is. Okay, Logan and Stuart, I'm going to ask each of you one final question. We've got an audience who's listening to this podcast who, theoretically is very interested in influencer marketing. Maybe they have or haven't done it yet. But in both of your experiences, Logan, you as someone who does this on a daily basis, and Stuart, who's done this a couple times now, from your perspectives, Logan, let's start with you. What would you want to tell someone who's looking to get started and do an influencer marketing campaign?
Definitely do your research and understand your budget. Understanding your budget is going to be really important, because there isn't just one rate that an influencer is going to give you. Every influencer charges something different. So definitely reach out to multiple to understand what you can get that fits your budget.
A quick follow-up question on that. In terms of influencers, there may be a perception, and you can tell me if it's right or wrong, that if I offer the influencer free stuff, then that's good enough. Like I could just be like, hey, come to my restaurant, have a meal on me, and then we're even. Is that fair, or is that inappropriate?
I would say always pay them as well. Unless you're giving them like a full week trip to like Bora Bora or something, and you're expecting them to just post a couple posts here or there, but you're giving them this really expensive experience, pay them. This is their full-time job. This is their career for the most part. They need to be paid and given some sort of compensation. So even if you're inviting them out for a dinner on you, that you still need to pay for their audience and access to their audience.
That's a really good tip, and something probably a lot of people don't think about. Stuart, same question to you. We've got an audience who's looking to get into influencer marketing. From your perspective and your side of things, what's some of the advice that you would give to clients who are looking to get into influencer marketing?
My first piece of advice would be, don't try to do it by yourself if you've never done it before. There are so many things to consider. So a lot of the things that we've discussed here, the research, the negotiations, understanding all that goes on with this. If you've never done it before, don't try it by yourself, because you're really going to probably get frustrated with it and then throw your hands up and say, hey, this is not worth the effort. But the reality is, it is worth the effort. The influencers, if used correctly, can be very much like a repeat buyer. You want that relationship with them so that your things work out well. You're getting the results that you want, and you're building that collaboration. Then you can work with each other. And like I was saying, like a repeat buyer, continue to amplify each other's voice in a very authentic way. So, something you have to work at, but any relationship in the end, you have to work at.
Yeah, that's a really great way to look at it. Yeah, and that's also, I think, really good advice. Because like Logan said too, the best directions in influencer marketing right now are to do more long-term approaches. So Stuart, more influencer marketing for 2023 on the horizon?
Yes. Most definitely. It's the sort of thing where it's not going away, right? It's not just the simple TikTok. And, here's how how you dance. Here's your kitty cat. Here's how you learn how to cook a particular dish. Is more to it than just that.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining us on the podcast today and discussing all things influencer marketing. It's been a joy discussing this, and I know we kind of only scratched the surface of it, but I think it's a good set of instructions for people who are looking to get into influencer marketing, some of the things they need to watch out for.
Jordan, I always love when we talk to our clients because, they really get to see all sides of it. They understand what it's like to be a home builder, but then they also understand what it's like getting external help and things like that. And, it just always ends up being really interesting. And so I think my biggest takeaway from this episode, and full disclosure, I work with the social team a lot, so I probably know more than the average bear about influencer marketing. But for me, the takeaway that I liked hearing from Stu was about working with an external partner when in doubt. I mean, obviously, we're a little biased as an agency on that point, but I think about how many factors can go into it and can go really right and can go really wrong. Like, I would never mess around with doing my own media because it's so complicated. And I feel kind of similarly towards influencer marketing because it's one of those things that looks approachable on the surface, but it can be a real mess if it's not done correctly. So I like Stuart's point about asking for help when you need it. Yeah. How about you? What was your big takeaway?
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway and so important. I think my biggest takeaway is, from this episode and conversation, and also just, full transparency, I definitely worked with Stuart on those influencer campaigns. And, just the learning from this discussion and the learning from having done those, I think is kind of a combination of the budget and then the rights as well. So the budget, just in terms of, again, you can't go in and just sort of expect like, oh, well, we're inviting you to this special event and there's drinks and food, or, we're going to let you have access to this exclusive thing, or we're going to buy you a dinner or whatever. It doesn't work that way. I think maybe it worked that way when influencer marketing started because the whole sort of industry was just getting set up and moving forward and understanding how it all worked. But today's world, influencers are a real job, and it is a real channel to think of in your media mix and your marketing mix. And it's not fair to think, oh, well, we can just invite them to a special event and that'll cover the cost of it. You do have to treat that as an expense and a business line item. And further to that, you need to understand what you're buying. Are you buying something just access to their audience, in which case, they're just going to do their thing and speak to their audience, but then you don't have the rights to repost that or use it for something else? Or are you getting, full buyouts on the rights on the other side, in which case you get the access to repost that, you get the access to use that photography or that videography and other campaigns and emails and so many other things, but that makes it far more expensive. So, I guess the takeaway is just really consider the fact that this is not minor leagues. This is professional stuff. You need to consider your budgets. You need to be respectful, and you need to understand what you're buying.
Yes to all of that. Absolutely. It is a brand partnership. And, before Gucci and Adidas went into a deal together, I'm sure there was just a mountain of paperwork and conversations and both parties making sure that their brands were going to be safe in the deal. And, working with influencers is no different because they're representing their brand, you're representing yours, and hopefully it should be mutually beneficial. And I don't know about you, but I can't pay my rent or mortgage and exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been Build Up, a ZGM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite listening app. Thanks to Shelby, our editor, Santana, our executive producer, Scott for our original music, and you for listening along. Be sure to follow us on your favorite social platform at Build Up Podcast.